So my name's James J. Britton, and I'm from the Department of Sociology at Acadia University in Nova Scotia, Canada. And I have the fortune of being the chair for this session. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm a white male wearing glasses with short brown hair and wearing a watermelon pin symbolizing support for those ravaged by and resisting genocide within Palestine, alongside those displaced by settler colonialism and its imperialist supports. Again, we welcome you all and thank you for attending this joint conference of the Socio-Legal Studies Association and the Marxism Disability Network, and specifically this session entitled Mobilizing Rights, Building Movements, which will center around Dr. Bhupathi's presentation, Identity and Organized Blind Movement, Contouring History of Disability Rights Movement in India. For those of you not wholly familiar with their research, Dr. Bhupathi P. is an assistant professor in the Department of English Studies at the Central University in Tamil Nadu in India. He teaches and researches literature, literary and cultural disability studies, refugee literature, life writing studies, and cultural studies. Prior to his appointment at the CUTN, he was actively teaching at Aligarh Muslim University for 3 years. Dr. Bhupathi's work has been published in journals such as Life Writing, Biography, Comedy Studies, Peace Review, IAFOR, Journal of Cultural Studies and Literature and Aesthetics, and he has contributed chapters to edited volumes published by Routledge and Peter Lang, among many others. So has his work been funded by the New Literary Observer in Moscow, the European University in St. Petersburg, and the German Historical Institute. So due to unexpected and last-minute changes, Dr. Bhupathi will be the principal speaker for this session and will be presenting for roughly 20 to 30 minutes. After this, we will devote roughly the same period for those in the audience to introduce questions and to engage with this important work. Now, before we begin, I would like to provide a brief outline of the session, especially if this is the first event or panel you are joining or will be able to participate in. So first, please mute your microphone so that our presenter is not interrupted. If you would like to ask the speaker a question about their presentation, please post it in the Q&A box. This can be found by clicking on the More button at the bottom of your screen and then access the button that reads Q&A. I will be keeping an eye on questions as they come in and will put as many of these to our speaker as we will have time for. We will not be reading who the questions are from, so your information will not be shared on the recordings later. Now, if you are unable to type and need to ask your question directly, please raise your hand after the presentation. However, please only do this if the Q&A box is inaccessible to you, and please try to keep your questions as short as possible so that we have the maximum time to hear from our speaker. We are recording these sessions, so if you choose to ask a question directly, you will be recorded, and we will assume that you are happy for us to share your question as part of the recording unless we hear from you directly. Then, of course, the usual applies. Please keep your questions respectful, keep them inclusive, so that we can enjoy exchanging ideas in a safe and comfortable environment. Please do not use the Zoom chat during the presentations. This is because guests using screen readers will have your chat comments read out loud and thus impairing the ability to hear the speakers. So this is quite important. Again, just to reiterate, all questions go in the Q&A and not the chat. And finally, We have people on hand if you have technical issues, if assistance is needed, please send a direct message to either Nell or Steve. So with all this, I apologize for the overwhelming housekeeping, but with all that done and out of the way, I'm delighted to invite Dr. Bhupathi P to share their slides and begin their presentation.
Thank you, Dr. James Britton. Hope I'm audible. Am I audible, James Britton? Yeah.
Sorry about that. I was muted. Yes, you are. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for confirming. Yeah. So at the outset, I thank MDN and the SLS network for selecting my abstract to be, uh, presented in this session. I'm very happy to be part of, to present my article on the title, which has already been read by the chair, but I just want to repeat it once again for the sake of clarity. The title of my article is Identity and Organized Blind Movement, Contouring History of Disability Rights Movement in India. So I'm also glad that I'll be getting over more than 20 minutes to present my paper. I was in fact wondering how I would compress it within 20 minutes of such a fairly long history of disability rights movement in India, particularly tracing its rights discourse and how it in a way led to the identity construction of people with the disabilities in India in the larger socio-political and cultural milieu of Indian context. So uh, to begin with the presentation, I just want to trace, the education for the disabled, how it all began, because that has a very important role to, in fact, had a very important role to play in terms of logging of the organized blind movement in India. As those of you who have gone through my abstract would have understood that I primarily map the organized disability rights movement in India, particularly its origin and development, with the onset of organized blind movement in India, particularly in 1970, early 1970 to be precise. So the education for the disabled dates back to the year of 1889, the year in which the first ever school for the blind was established in Amritsar, Punjab, by the colonial missionary. After that, the host of other schools were also established, one in Tamil Nadu, Palayangotai in 1890, and there were other schools also in the northern parts of India. Alongside, there were also special schools for the deaf, during the colonial period, especially towards the end of 19th century, in various parts of India. The first school was being established in the Bombay Presidency. And as well, back then it was Bombay Presidency. Today we call it as Mumbai. So in the state of Maharashtra in the present day context broadly. So if you look at the history of education for the disabled, primarily it was offered through residential schools, for the disabled. So we had residential schools. It was squarely, basically modeling upon rather it was modeled upon boarding school for the blind or for the deaf in Europe. And by the time India got independence, we had almost 30 special schools for the blind, because hereafter I want to focus only on the schools, special residential schools for the blind, because they played a very, very vital role in terms of starting the organized movement of the blind. In 1970, especially toward the end of 1960, the blind graduates, the students who were coming out of the special schools for the blind located in Lucknow, in Delhi, and broadly in other parts of India, they were trying to, in a way, sort of organize themselves to fight for certain fundamental rights, that is, right to get higher education. Because when they applied to the University of Delhi to enroll for higher education, they were not actually given admission. So it has been very clearly documented by Dr. Jagdish Chandra, very eminent disability rights movement historian, in his thesis submitted to Syracuse University in USA. And when they sort of tried to approach or apply for BA degree in the University of Delhi, they were not given admission, stating that they will not be able to study in the mainstream environment. So this hence they decided to sort of organize themselves under the sort of, I mean, they decided to form a group and fight against this sort of ableistic attitude of University of Delhi. This is on the one hand. On the other hand, in the schools that were established for the special schools that were established for the blind in Delhi, in Lucknow, uh, the students were getting they were not happy with the food that they were provided in their residential places, and especially the wardens were taking off some food items, certain materials. So they sort of fought. They came together. They discussed among themselves, and they fought against such a sort of a condition in which they were put into. Though the school got lot of money from the government, they were not provided proper food. So this, I mean, that sort of, in a way, as Jagdish Chandar has very rightly documented, politicized, the young blind graduates. And as a result, when they sort of came out of the school, they already had certain politicized sort. I mean, they already had certain political consciousness to fight against their rights, though it was very small way that they were fighting against food that they were not provided properly in the school. But that's in a way largely led to the a broader movement of organized blind movement in India, particularly in the year 1970. This is the second important aspect in terms of origin of the organized blind movement. So one was, as I said, they were fighting against the University Administration of Delhi to get admission, and that was also in a way propelled or motivated by the blind graduates who already graduated, and they were staying outside, and they were by then, and by 1970 they could not really in a way get into University of Delhi, and they already formed a group outside, and the students who graduated in 1970, they also joined with them. And if you look at the I mean, how did they get that political consciousness? They got it through fighting against, through their school environment, because they came together, fought against, this improper food or stale food that they were provided, or they were not provided in some cases, proper food items. The wardens were in a way taking the food materials, food items to their home. Third level, the National Federation of the Blind, I think this is where it's very important. National Federation of the Blind in America, which was started somewhere around in the middle of 1940, had a very decisive influence in the origin of organized blind movement in India, because the magazines, braille magazines that were in a way sent to India by NFB, National Federation of the Blind, was quite were in a way accessible, were available to blind graduates. So this is actually third important thing. So to put it very simply, the organized movement of the blind, one side began with the graduates, blind graduates coming out of residential schools for the blind, not being able to get into the University of Delhi for their Bachelor of Arts admission. On the other side, they were already in a way certain, I must say, certain political, certain rather conditions, the possibilities That is, like, one side they had the already political consciousness, on the other side they also had magazines coming from USA, sent by National Federation of the Blind, out of their mission to sort of spread this political consciousness, rights discourse to the world, especially to the blind people located in various countries. And Asia, in a way, largely got benefited out of the NFB's emphasis on spreading rights discourse by 1970. And on the other level, we should also understand, it's a very important thing, the socialist movement, Marxist movement, also women's movement in the South, I must say, Dravidian movement, self-respect movement, that were going on in 1970. Also, we can say Naxalbari movement, a radical Marxist movement, that were going on in various parts of India in 1970, hugely influenced blind people to come together, form a very powerful movement for themselves in order to restore their fundamental right to get education, to have self-respect, to have employment, to have accessibility, and so on and so forth. So we find we can in a way locate the origin of organized movement of the blind, yeah, in these sort of contexts in which it was very comfortably in a way emerging. So by 1970, also we must understand that certain one or two blind graduates who went to America, studied there because they were quite they belonged to quite affluent family, in 1960s and 70s. Their parents chose to send them to schools for the blind, particularly the secondary schools for the blind in America. People like Mitchell, sorry, no, not Mitchell, I guess Call and others. They sort of came back from America with a lot of lessons, with a lot of ideas as to how to they organize blind people. And as we know very well, that India is a very, very diverse country. It has a lot of languages, lot of cultures, lot of religions. Primarily, the language posed a very, very serious problem in order to have a pan-Indian organized movement of the blind. So NFB, that is National Federation of the Blind, which was started in India in 1971, if I'm not mistaken, and that National Federation of the Blind, it was first primarily sort of focusing on North Indian blind population, particularly the blind graduates who were coming out of residential special schools for the blind. In 1971, the 4 to 5 blind graduates like Rumta, Mitchell, Kaul, and all these young blind graduates who who were trying to in a way organize or constitute an organization called the NFBG, National Federation of the Blind Graduates. So in 1973, they had a conference in Lucknow, and many blind blind people who did not have a school graduation, or who were not qualified educationally to be part of this group, they also in a way sort of opposed this term of having, let's say, the name of the word called graduates. They said that it should be NFB, National Federation of the Blind, which would include all blind people. So as a result, in 1973, the term graduates was dropped, and it was like they had a very strong movement. Then it was because they could include large number of blind people in North India. But I'm a person from South India, especially I'm from Tamil Nadu. I must say that in Tamil Nadu altogether, in 1980, we had a different movement. It's a very interesting movement because this movement was started by Mr. Kannan, who was a Marxist, who was in a way having a very important position in Tamil Nadu chapter of Communist Party of India. So he he was working in BSNL, which is a government a telephone company, and he retired from BSNL, and he wanted to read books for blind students. So he found that they were not united because the students who were studying in the colleges like Presidency College, Madras Christian College, and other colleges, also Pachepa's College, they were not, though they were staying in the hostel, they did not realize their political rights. They did not understand the idea of rights discourse. Since Kannan was a Marxist, he helped them form an organization, or rather disability advocacy organization called College Students and Graduates Association of the Blind. So CSGAB. In 1980, this association was started. Through this association, the students were fighting, the blind students were fighting for this admission into Presidency College in Chennai, Pachepa's colleges, and they were also in a way able to come together, have a group that would in a way sort of support other blind students who did not have readers facility. So back then there wasn't any facility for reading books. Braille books were not accessible, available much. So college students were primarily relying on readers to read, volunteers to read books for them. So by 1985 or 86, I think 1985 or so, the association became very popular, and Kannan, who was who had a very good education, he was a sighted person. He helped blind people. He, in a way, he read out the the newspaper articles and other news items that were carrying the news about blind graduates, especially NFB's movement in Delhi, through sit-ins, dharnas, road blocking the roads to get the demands. So by 1986 or so, we had a reservation provided by the union government in C and D level post. But the movement till shall we say till the end of 1980, the movement was primarily focusing, rather run by blind people. So to the end of 1980, and that is where other people with other disabilities were slowly coming into the picture. By 1991, Javed Abidi, very famous disability activist, someone who was the graduate of Aligarh Muslim University, went to USA, got exposed to the vibrant American disability rights movement, came back to India, and he looked at the Indian situation, and he found that disability rights movement in India was largely run by blind people, because through NFB, and by 1976, NFB also divided into AICB, All India Confederation of the Blind, because Kaul and other blind, Mr. Kaul and other blind people came out of it due to certain conflict of interest. So by 1990, Abidi found that only two broader disability rights organizations were popular in India, and they were doing a lot of conducting a lot of activities. They were emphasizing for larger disability legislation to have in India. So also Abidi was very strongly influenced by ADA, American with Disabilities Act in 1990. So in 1991, he came into the picture and established NCPDP, a very popular cross disability organization, and this is where we find the identity of disabled people was very firmly established in the legal realm, in the social realm, in the political realm, as a sort of a very, very powerful one through rights discourse, thanks to Mr. Javed Abidi, because who started the cross disability movement in India. And it is after Javed Abidi came to the picture, came into the disability rights discourse in India through his organization NCPDP, and Abidi actually changed the course of disability rights movement. So when blind people were leading the movement through NFB, ASAB, the movement was primarily through dharnas, sit-ins, very vigorous, a movement, sitting on the road, blocking the parliament, blocking the way to the parliament, blocking the way to the president's palace, especially in Delhi. They played a very major role. And the same thing was actually in a way is even now being followed by CSGAB, the very popular disability blind organization, rights group organization I told you, which is College Students Graduates Association of the Blind in Chennai. So even now they follow this, but NFB and AICB, in 1990 when they were following all these things, Abidi introduced what we call advocacy movement, from activist movement to advocacy movement. So what did he do? He tried to lobby with the government. He tried to sort of present the case by meeting people, by meeting the ministers, by meeting the officials in the government, instead of opposing them, instead of antagonizing them. As a result, the government came forward to conduct a conference in 1993 to discuss the possibilities of having disability legislation in India. And though the government came forward, decided to have a legislation, though the draft was ready, as Jagdish Sandhu has recorded in his thesis, to the end of 1993, for some reason it was not passed in the parliament. Again, Abidi, through his cross disability organization, had to intervene. By 1995, finally, Persons with Disabilities Act, Equal Opportunity, Protection of Rights and Full Participation, PWD Act, was passed. In the year, in the same year, in England also we had a DDA, Disability Discrimination Act. So this provided 3% reservation, and in terms of education, employment, so on and so forth. And to say this, especially we know very well the disability legislation was passed at the time when neoliberalism was slowly getting into India, especially in 1991 when Manmohan Singh was the late Manmohan Singh was the Minister of Finance. He signed a WTO agreement. As a result, India was slowly moving like other European states, like the European states and also America, particularly Western states, global northern states, from welfare-based economy to sort of capitalist-based economy. And though 1995 Act was passed in the parliament, and people from India out here would understand, would agree with me that it took almost 10 years to have to see at least 10 to 15% of the result of the implementation, the consequences of rather shall we say the consequences of implementing PWD Act. So in universities and colleges, especially in educational institutions, government sectors, the reservation was not implemented almost till 2007 or 8. Many of the central government universities started implementing PWD reservation in 2013. So by 2016, India had very important, very significant legislation, that is RPWD Act, Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, which increased the affirmative action, that is reservation, in employment from 3% to 4%, in education from 3% to 5%. Thanks to the organization like NPRD, Muralidharan sir is here, and others, a lot of organizations. By the beginning of previous decade, by 2010 or so, India had so many organizations. We had organization for the deaf, we had organization for the intellectually disabled, and more importantly, many cross disability organizations came up, particularly like NPRD very closely works with the so many organizations in various states. That was slow in a way, was I must say slightly missing with the NCPDP, especially with Javed Abadi's thing. But NPRD and other organizations, they very close. They have almost like 60 to 50 to 60 organizations working in the grassroots level. Linking with the NPRD, providing a very important platform for the organization to sort of fight for their rights. So today, in Indian context, we have a very I must say a significant sort of like rights discourse. So one side, where there are a lot of organizations which fight for the rights of disabled through courtrooms. They file a case. I must say NFB also has moved from advocacy, I mean like activism to advocacy. So filing a case in the court. And similarly AACB. And after a very long period, so the first Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities was a blind person. I mean, like the first disabled Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities was Pincha. So after that, very recently, we had Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities being appointed from disabled community. So disabled organizations always fight for the rights of disabled people. Today, the rights discourse is very vibrant. But I must also say that almost some 5 to 6 years back, there was another term which was used to refer to people with the disabilities. It's called the Divyang, which is children of God or divine bodied people by the union government. When it was introduced, many disabled organizations very strongly fought against the use of this terminology. In spite of that, the term is being widely used by the government agencies in the platform like railway and other platforms. They have replaced this thing, and even disabled people, when it was introduced, they had a confusion. What does it refer to? Divyangjan, whom does it refer to? And it's a very insulting terminology because it only it says disabled people as divine bodied people at the time when rights discourse is gaining popular. So it's almost like saying you are a divine bodied person, you don't need any rights. You already got. You don't need, gods do not need any sort of a rights. But on the other hand, I must also say, because I'm part of the government, this university, we do receive certain representations from UGC and others, constantly asking what the university has done for like this people with the disabilities. So it all happened, or rather is happening because of very strong disability rights groups. So very recently, it's a very revolutionary thing that happened in the state of Tamil Nadu. So disabled people, will be nominated henceforth in the local bodies. So they will participate in the decision making process of local body, that is panchayat, municipal, corporation, like governance. That would increase very strongly, very widely accessibility for people with the disabilities, because India is a country, even now it lacks very serious accessible environment. So currently I'm in Poland. When I compare the situation, I feel how much backward we are. But the situation, strongly platform like NPRD and NCPDP and other organizations are constantly moving forward, constantly like fighting against all the fighting against the barriers and the lack of accessibility and so on and so forth. And one thing we need to understand is, how do we, there's something, it's a very important that MDN has in a way sort of called for papers on this topic, particularly in the age of neoliberalism. That is, investing on disabled people is considered to be not worthy, because in India we have almost 300 to 400 smart cities are being converted into smart cities. The tactile path, the accessible environment in terms of ramps, tactile path and other things, they are only laying on the existing pathway. And the existing pathways are all occupied by shopkeepers, right? So we have a very serious problem in terms of thing. But one hand, cities are becoming smarter. On the other hand, the providing accessibility remains to be a mere tokenism. And on the third level, in terms of the economy, sort of very rapidly changing towards neoliberalism, the service of the disabled almost is considered, or the investment on accessibility, creating a barrier-free environment, is almost it's almost considered as not worthy, because if you look at the kind of the budget allocation by the union government in the last 10-15 years, we will understand how much how much of neoliberalism has actually in a way worked against the idea of accessibility, idea of disability rights, idea of barrier free environment. Because at the time when we should be talking about rights discourse, equal opportunity, and the protection of rights, we in country like India, we are focused more on going back to once again the outdated, very negative model of religious model of disability, calling people with the disabilities as Divyangjan, divine bodied people, which as many disability organizations very strongly said, it deprives of their rights. You're already a god, you don't need anything. So I guess one hand, throughout the world that's the case, but countries like India, one hand from 1990s onwards, there is a very strong sort of rights movement. But on the other hand, there is also a very strong sort of interest towards building an economy to be a capitalistic economy. Therefore, leaving the blind or disabled people to fend for themselves. So that's the kind of a thing. So the I mean the but to put it to conclude, I must say that the all began with organized movement of the blind in 1970, playing a very decisive role in terms of bringing in affirmative action in C and D level, that is the clerical level reservation, paving a way for, or rather providing a very conducive environment in late 1980s and early 1990s for people like Javed Abedi and others to start cross disability organization. So cross disability movement. So I will conclude it here, and if there is any questions, definitely we will take them up for discussion. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Wonderful. Wow. Thank you very much, Dr. Prapathi. That was great. What an excellent way to conclude too. Your conclusion was fantastic. I just want to, before we get to the questions, I'm just going to do a quick run through. We have about 15 to 20 minutes roughly for questions, or 20 minutes for questions for Dr. Bhupathi, sorry. So if you would like to ask the speaker a question about their presentation, please post it in the Q&A box. If you are unable to type and need to ask your question directly, just please feel free to raise your hand. However, please only do this if the Q&A box is inaccessible to you. And also please keep or try to keep your questions as short as possible so that we can have the most time given to Dr. Bhupathi. So I'm going to keep an eye on the Q&A box, but we have several questions already in the queue. So I'll just read these out. Hopefully these will be accessible to everyone. So here's the first question. You mentioned that the young blind activists in India were inspired by the workers', socialist, and feminist movements. In this way, they are similar to disability movements in France, Japan, and Britain at various points in time. In the imperialist world, however, disabled activists found it difficult to influence how these movements ran and to force them to take disability struggles seriously. Did the Indian comrades have greater success in this regard? How did Indian communists, feminists, unions respond to the formation of the movement?
Yeah, wonderful question. In fact, a very I often wonder about this particular idea itself. I'll take 3 to 4 minutes and to respond to this because it's a very important question. I said that disability rights movement, particularly movement of the organized blind through NFB, AICB, and CSGAB in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, and NFB, AICB in Delhi broadly, were influenced by labor's movement, Naxalite movement, that is radical Marxist movement, and feminist movement. But they took inspiration from these movements. But sadly, uh, except one or two comrades, I told you, Comrade Kannan in 1980 helped uh, blind people, blind students, college students form CSGAP in Chennai. It's a very important thing. This sort of a very, very outward, explicit intervention from comrades, to my knowledge, was not seen in terms of NFB, ASAB. That's why I told you when I talked about the origin of NFB, because ASAB is the offspring of NFB. I told you they took inspiration, of course, from socialist, feminist, communist movements, because by 1970s and 80s, Jayaprakash Narayan's movement. Also, you have Dalit movement by Kanchiram to Bahujan Samajwadi movement, Bahujan movement. All these movements greatly influenced blind people, but they did not help them constitute a politically vibrant, a political organization. As in the case of Kannan in Chennai, helped blind people form an group. And I must very proudly say, Kannan helped, in a way, blind people write bylaw. He is the founder of CSGAP, but he ensured that he would not interfere in terms of selecting the thing. Even today, every 2 years once, the CSGAP conducts election in a very democratic way, and they have a very strong bylaw. They have a advocacy, they have a legal wing, they have a like in their core team, core like organization, they have women secretary for women, vice president from women. So in that way, I must say, compared to NFB and AACB started including women like little late, but this CSGAB had representation for blind women as well. It's a very important thing. So, but there is another kind of a thing I think it is very interesting to note, that is people like Anita Gai and Renu Atlaga and others, also Nandini Ghosh, who were part of the feminist movement, particularly Anita Gai. She wrote a very interesting article on how the mainstream feminism excluded disabled women. So by 1990, late 1990, people like Rosemary Garland Thompson and others in UK, when they were talking about the rights of disabled women, feminist disability studies, and those works were works in a way greatly influenced people like Anita Gai, who is no more sadly now, to start I would say a very political, because he was also very politically active in early 2000 and all, and to write a lot of books, a lot of articles in the line of disability and gender, particularly on disabled women. So so it was because he was also a wheelchair user. So we can understand that yes, communist movement, labor movement played a very decisive role, particularly in the beginning of or in the origin of blind movement. But in some parts, particularly in Tamil Nadu, also I must say KFB, Kerala Federation of the Blind, which is in a way, which was started earlier than CSGAP, that also had a very good influence of communist movement. Because even today, if anyone is, if you are remember with the Indian landscape, political landscape, Kerala, you have a communist government. It has got a it has got very long, strong and long, communist activism, communist inclination, leniency. So you can say KFB, which was started in 1960s, mid of 1960s. Jagdish Chandra has also documented that. So we can on the other level, yes, feminist, the disabled people who were the hardcore feminists before they got the consciousness of disabled feminism, understood the ableistic notion of mainstream Indian feminism, came out, started Indian disabled feminism. People like Anita Gai and others. So thank you very much for the very interesting question.
Wonderful. I have several listed, so I am going to try to get as many in as
Okay.
possible before the end of the session. So I'm going to read the next or one of the next questions. Thanks for your important talk, Bhupathi. I'm struck by the distinction you draw between activism and advocacy in the Indian disability rights movement. It seems to me to mirror a distinction between strategies of liberal legalism and more radical forms of activism. What is the dominant approach of disability rights organizations today in engaging with the Indian government? And what is your own view of these differing strategies?
Yes. Once again, a very brilliant question. I think I slightly touched upon it, but for the want of clarity, I would once again reiterate what I actually said toward the end of my talk. I said that the kind of what you call introduction of cross disability movement by uh, Javed Abidi in early 1990s, in a way shifted the course of disability rights movement from activism to advocacy. And that sort of worked, and no doubt about it, because within 2 years, there was a conference in Delhi on the possibilities of having disability legislation passed by the Indian Parliament. But today, predominantly, many disability rights groups engage with advocacy. Advocacy, as in not merely lobbying, but through court, because the former CJI, Chandrachud, Mr. Chandrachud, he sort of gave wonderful verdicts. Chief Justice of India Chandrachud gave wonderful verdicts in terms of restoring disability rights. So today, predominantly, I must say that cross disability movement, because in order to respond to this question, I must make the distinction between cross disability movement and blind movement. Cross disability movement, like pan-Indian cross disability movement, is primarily centered on rather lobbying, advocacy, filing cases in the court. It's more like a courtroom activism. It is going on, and of course, it is working very well. And they keep sending letters, drafts, and all these things. On the other level, I don't know, like because NFB and AICB, they also resorted to courtroom activism, because we have Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities. Because in 2012 or 13, we had a very decisive case, a verdict given by the Indian Supreme Court to the case filed by NFB restoring 3% reservation, and also providing a very clear-cut clarification as to how the government can go forward in terms of providing reservation. So we have, I mean, especially in the 21st century, we have lots and lots of interventions, very, very decisive interventions, actually in a way came from Indian Supreme Court. And on the other level, because I'm from the state of Tamil Nadu, as I said, even today, organization like CSGAB, because we have very dominant two organizations. I would give you two examples from that. One is the blind organization, I told you, CSGAB, College Students and Graduates Association of the Blind. They strongly believe, even today, till today, that sitting on the road, blocking the road, doing sit-ins, dharnas would only help blind people, or would only uplift the blind people in terms of getting their actual rights, which you have very rightly said, radical activism. Which in a way true, it has helped them in the past, but today now police are arresting them. In 2014, when Jayalalitha was the chief minister of the state of Tamil Nadu, very sadly, almost 200 blind people were picked up in the evening and they were dropped in the graveyards, which is 50 kilometers away from the city, Chennai. So those things are also there, but people fight for it. People still, the CSJB organization strongly believes in terms of having very radical activism. On the other hand, we have December 3 movement. People from India would understand. It is led by, once again, a very popular person. I mean, like just like Javed Abidi, we always call him as South Indian Javed Abidi. That is Deepak Nathan. He sort of works very closely with the present government, today's DMK government in Tamil Nadu. And he, of course, he made a very interesting, very brilliant sort of intervention through lobbying and advocacy. What he did, I told you in my talk that in my presentation, that he made Tamil Nadu government to pass in the Tamil Nadu Legislative Assembly, that is 1% of reservation in the local body governance in terms of panchayat, municipality and corporation governance. As a result, almost 13,000 disabled people would be part of Tamil Nadu local body governance. They would play a very decisive role in terms of creating accessibility. So this is also there. At present, I mean, predominantly in India today we have some sort of courtroom activism, filing letters, participating in the meetings, giving very brilliant suggestions to the government. On the other hand, we also have the organization like CSGAP resorting to the older method of radical activism. Thank you for the question.
Wonderful. I am going to read clearly your discussion and presentation has stimulated both comments and questions. So I'm just going to read a combined set of comments, and then I think we'll have time for one more question. So I apologize for some of the questions that have been posed, but we'll see what we can get to. So the comments are written as such. Just to clarify, many in the NPRD have their allegiance with the communist movement. Their program and approach to disability issues is from a Marxist perspective. And they also go on to comment, the founding president of the NFB was Sadhan Gupta, who was a member of parliament elected from Kolkata on the ticket of the Communist Party. Now, pivoting over to a question, I don't know if you would like to speak to that comment, but this is potentially the last question, unless we have more time. This is what the audience member posed. I'm interested in your comments about terminology and quote, divine-bodied people, end quote. Is there any discussion of why, how this terminology arose at around the same time that a rights discourse became more prevalent?
Yeah, wonderful. So first I will just very briefly, like probably in 20 or 30 seconds, make a comment on the comments that were posted. Very interesting comments talking about NPRD. It's very true. NPRD is a very strong communist-based rights movement, and many organizations which are in a way part of NPRD are indeed communist. They have a communist lineage. I'm not really well aware of whether Rumta was part of the rights. I mean, like part of the was elected member of the parliament, because as far as my knowledge of knowing him through the writings of Jagdish Chandra, I could only understand that he was a student of this Lucknow Special School, residential schools for the blind, and he came after that he became a very strong activist and founding member of NFB, and he played a very decisive role. But I'm not really aware of it. But if that is the case, I would take it as an information. I would learn it. And in terms of the question, yes, when it's a very complex question. If you could understand the Indian religious model of disability, it strongly, especially Hindu religious model, it says disability is a karma. It's a punishment for the sin committed in the previous birth. And you can, now you would be wondering, if it's a punishment, why it is seen as a divine body? There is also a very strong belief among the Hindus in India that since it is a karma, that's a divinely punished people, because if you could help these people, it would be the God would give you a very good moksham. That's a wonderful life in the heaven, if there is anything. So disability is that's why I always ask, even in my disability studies class also. I've been teaching disability studies almost for 7-8 years. I teach literary and cultural disability studies at my university in Masters of English. So I always ask them, if disabled people are divinely punished people, how come they will be a divine bodied people? There is a very strong problem there. But when this terminology was introduced by our Prime Minister, many disabled organizations, including NPRD, many disabled organizations, many disabled individuals, they said that it is not a credit, it is not something that is glorifying disabled people, it is insulting the disabled people. Many people openly said there were lots and lots of discussions, but the government did not listen to it. The government even went to the extent of changing it in the Gazette. I mean, putting it in the thing, and it was, I guess, it was changed in the Gazette also. But because it was changed in railway, in all the government league platforms, the name was actually changed. So I mean, it's a very complex thing. It's once again, as I said, I would say officially introducing a very derogative, very negative, insulting religious model of disability by saying that disabled people should be called as divine bodied people. Because as an activist, I mean, I do not agree to it, and as a person of a student of disability studies, it's strongly problematic thing. I don't think nowhere in the world we have this sort of a thing. All through the world, like the change, and you would also be wondering that the RPWD Act actually ratified 2006 UNCRPD legislation. You can understand how complex it is. But many people who believe in the Hindu religious model of disability welcomed it, and disability rights organizations strongly opposed it. So it's a very complex thing even now, but the term continues to be used. Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, what a rich, it really was, what a rich discussion and exchange of thoughts. I apologize for some of the questions that were not able to be addressed. But I really would like to extend a huge thank you to you, Dr. Bhupathi. That was wonderful. And I would also like to make sure that we extend thanks to the BSL interpreters who really continue throughout the conference to work tirelessly to make these sessions, as they did this, accessible. And also thank you to those who are doing tech support and for facilitating these sessions. What we would like to do as we approach 15 minutes after the hour is we would like to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to have a comfort break. We'll have a comfort break until 4:30 p.m. when we're going to return and have the opportunity to hear from Professor Ravi Malhotra from the University of Ottawa, who will be delivering the keynote entitled How Can Materialism Develop the Social Model? So thank you again, Dr. Bhupathi, especially considering the changes that took place with the session. You were wonderful in attending to that. And I hope everyone who's participating is able to enjoy the rest of the conference and is able to have a bit of time over the next 15 minutes to take a breather. So thank you all, and we'll see everyone back here at 4:30.
Thank you, Dr. James. It was fantastic to be part of your session. It really made the session wonderful. Thank you very much. And in fact, I was quite lucky, I must say, that I had full time. So thank you very much.
Right on. Thank you.
Right.
All right. See you soon, everyone.